you spoke too freely or too wisely. In democratic Athens, that could be enough. One vote, one accusation, and you were dragged from the agora to a dank stone cell, stripped of status and voice. Chains bit into your ankles. Food was stale bread and brackish water. Days blurred. Nights echoed with screams or silence. They called it justice, ostracism, exile, or worse. If you were lucky, they'd send you away. If not, you'd die slowly behind a city that once praised reason and freedom. In the birthplace of democracy, the wrong idea could still bury you alive. Step back into ancient Athens, a city where the air vibrated with the spirited discourse of its citizens, under the watchful gaze of gods and fate. Here in the bustling agora, where the scent of olive oil and dust mingled, and words held power beyond measure, democracy was both a beacon and a trap. Athens, the cradle of democracy, was as much a haven for freedom of speech as it was a haunt for those who dared to test its limits. Words were weapons, double-edged and dangerous. In this vibrant city, the agora served as both theatre and battlefield, where wit and eloquence determined the course of many lives. Public discourse, while encouraged, was fraught with peril. An offhand comment, a sharp critique, or a joke falling flat might be taken up as arms by enemies or twisted into treason by opportunistic rivals. Each word was a step in a dangerous dance of social dynamics and power plays. Enthralled by the potential impact of their words, citizens hoped to inspire change, influence juries, or sway the assembly. Yet behind every statement lurked the shadow of imminent peril. A reminder that the line between esteemed orator and exile was thin and fraught with risk. The paradox of Athens lay in its embrace of freedom bound by stringent societal norms. While citizens gathered in the assembly, a symbol of democracy's voice, to shape their city's future, these very walls witnessed the rapid turn of fortunes. On one day, eloquence could elevate an individual to the status of hero. The next, that same eloquence could see them vilified and discarded. This dualism underscores the irony of controlled freedom, where the same voices that called for liberation were subject to the constraints they sought to break. Amidst this vibrant tapestry of conversation, humour and sarcasm served as both balm and blade. Athens loved its satirists and jokers, whose jesting unmasked societal truths, but often at their own peril. Behind every laugh was the potential for ruin. A misjudged jest could easily tip into calamity, reclassified from humour to heresy, leaving the speaker condemned by the very audience once roaring with approval. The comic playwrights danced an intricate line, wielding their quills with both precision and trepidation in a constant struggle to entertain without inciting ire. And then there were the assembly speeches, a potent testament to the ambition and peril that pocked the political landscape. The stage promised both elevation and humiliation, as every vocalised ideal was dissected by thousands. Offend the wrong faction or misplace a single phrase, and the assembly's support could swiftly morph into fierce opposition. Those revered in the morning might find themselves by evening condemned as instigators of sedition, victims of democracy's fiercest defence mechanism. Compounding the uncertainty was the role of informants, oftentimes friends turned adversaries. Trust was a scarce commodity in Athens. Whispered conspiracies flourished, delivered by those once considered loyal. Personal relationships blurred as social pawns, fostering an air of paranoia and suspicion. Informants tiptoed along the edge of discretion, balancing personal ambition with survival, as they fed secrets into the city's intricate political machinery. Athens' notorious punctuation of public opinion meant that power resided in the hands of the populace, a fickle, unpredictable force. Changes in sentiment were swift and ruthless, as the ebb and flow of collective mood could uplift or obliterate an individual's reputation nearly overnight. An Athenian citizen learned to navigate this capricious field, balancing public ambition with an avoidance of an all-too-common wrath that paved the city's storied but merciless history. As we consider the intersection of religion and politics, where the sacred and civic bled into each other, we see yet another dimension of Athenian life. Religion was a public duty, woven into the fabric of governance through sacred rites and ceremonies. A perceived discrepancy with the divine could be leveraged as political ammunition. Here, theological offence melded seamlessly with judicial consequences, creating a dual requirement of civic responsibility and divine adoration. Any perceived heavenly displeasure invited not just spiritual but communal and political retribution. Reflecting on the paradoxical freedom of speech provides insight into the triumphs and perils of Athenian society. The city, adorned with intellectual and artistic brilliance, was at its core constricted by the human vices of envy, fear, and ambition. Not merely a relic of history, Athens' legacy resonates even today as we measure freedom against its cost and potential threat. It poses questions on the price of expression, challenging us to consider both its inspiring promise and its intrinsic danger. A living dialogue that has rippled through ages, timeless in its caution and possibility. In the vibrant heart of ancient Athens, democracy embraced both the noble and the peculiar, and among its strangest customs was ostracism. Introduced by Cleisthenes, this practice emerged around 508 BCE as a guardian of the democracy's fragility. Conceived to protect against potential tyrants, ostracism allowed citizens to wield small shards of pottery, ostraca, to mark a name for exile. Yet beneath its democratic facade, this system revealed the ironies within Athenian ideals. It was democracy's shadow, where fair play and personal vendettas danced in the agora. The city, alive with debates and laughter, occasionally paused for the solemn spectacle of ostracophoria. Citizens gathered, each clutching an ostracon, to decide a fate. The air hummed with the tension of decision, pottery crunching underfoot as names whispered across the assembly. Those names were more than syllables. They embodied the push and pull of ambition and fear. The agora, usually a cacophony of deals and disputes, transformed into a theatre of political drama where civic duty and survival instincts collided. The shards reflected an individual's fall from grace, their stories woven into the city's fabric, now threatened by an unseen hand. Public sentiment, volatile as the Mediterranean winds, was the lifeblood of ostracism. It was a precarious balance of democracy's collective wisdom and the shifting sands of human nature. Charismatic figures could bend outcomes with speeches that tugged at heartstrings or provoked dread. In Athens' hands, democracy was a lived experience, unpredictable, and at times swayed more by emotion than reason. This communal tide could make or unmake men, its currents dictated by whispers and oratory prowess more than measured deliberation. The decree of ostracism was deeply personal, severing one from the city's lifeblood. Banished for 10 years, the ostracized carried the weight of lost identity beyond Athens' walls. Their stories, once interwoven with the city's life, echoed in memories of familial laughter and civic debate. Far from familiar streets, they became wanderers, relearning how to navigate foreign worlds. The echo of their presence in Athens lingered like a ghost, a reminder of both their absence and the city's hold over its own. Despite its democratic guise, ostracism could be a tool of manipulation, turned by clever hands into a device of personal ambition. Political architects skilled in the art of public perception wielded it not to protect democracy, but to eliminate threats. The assembly, a forum for deliberation, at times morphed into a theatre of intrigue. Figures moved unseen, orchestrating exiles under the cloak of civic responsibility, their deft machinations pushing rivals into oblivion. Yet the same public they manipulated could defy expectation, turning against the very forces that sought to steer it, a testament to democracy's volatile beauty. For those cast into exile, the strain reached well beyond geographical distance. It was a haunting severance from community and identity, a plunge into uncharted waters where Athens and its rhythms became a distant dream. Faces faded from memory, replaced by foreign vistas that failed to replicate the intimacy of their homeland. Yet some found in this void a chance for transformation, reshaping their lives away from the heat of Athenian rivalries. Challenges were met with introspection, the quest for redemption mingling with the hope of homecoming. With the turn of the decade, the prospect of return loomed large. For the fortunate, reintegration offered rebirth, marred by the spectre of past exile. Athens continued its march forward, evolving with new faces taking up old places. Revelations awaited those who crossed its threshold again, a city altered, yet familiar. Here the dance of ambition resumed, tempered by wisdom earned in distant lands. Their arrival was as much a civic testament as a personal odyssey, a convergence of broken past and hopeful present. Ostracism, beyond its shards and shadows, offers a lens into Athens itself. Both democratic affirmation and a cautionary tale, it reflects a culture striving for political purity, its noble aspirations mingling with the messiness of human ambition. This practice, ancient yet resonant, serves as a haunting reminder of democracy's dual nature. It was a counterweight to tyranny, yet a tool for potential abuse, revealing lessons buried within pottery fragments. As the world has evolved, so too have discussions on governance, echoing still the whimsical dance between voice and silence in the echoes of an ancient city's broken shards. In ancient Athens, citizenship was not just a badge of honour, but the very essence of one's identity. Losing it was akin to vanishing into thin air. Those stripped of this vital status found themselves erased from civic records, not just symbolically, but with practical consequences that echoed through their lives. Shut out from participating in democratic processes, they became shadows in the vibrant, bustling city, a city that no longer acknowledged their presence. In a place like Athens, where personal ties and civic engagements were interwoven, such exclusion meant more than just a loss of rights. It was a gradual erasure from society's collective memory. Athens, with its exclusive social fabric, could be relentlessly unforgiving. To be shunned was to be cut off from the city's life force. The agora, once filled with lively debates and communal gatherings, became alien terrain. The torment of losing physical freedom was nothing compared to the degradation of one's social worth. Each averted gaze tightened the invisible chains, symbolising the death of one's civic self. In this tightly knit society, where connections meant everything, being pushed to the periphery was a punishment of the soul, a life sentence served in a world that moved on without you. Living as a pariah within Athenian walls was an exile more severe than banishment to foreign lands. This internal ostracism snatched away the bonds that once tied individuals to the city's life, turning familiar streets into hostile grounds. They roamed, ever present yet unseen, a ghostly existence in a world once intimate. Barred from public ceremonies and sacred spaces, every corner turned became a confrontation with their exclusion. Their days were filled with hollow routines and devoid of purpose beyond mere survival, while the city celebrated without them. The emotional chasm created by this isolation was vast. In a society that flourished on collective celebrations and shared beliefs, being cut off from these experiences was to lose one's footing in the passage of life. Rituals marking births, coming of age and marriages, once personal milestones, were now distant echoes. Deprived of participation, they watched their past blur into an indistinct tapestry, their future shorn of the shared spectacles that defined individual aspirations and memories. This exclusion was not merely an absence of joy, but a severance from identity itself. The Athenian courts represented a public stage where democracy's ideals and personal grievances played out. Denied access to these venues, those ostracised had no channel for legal recourse or public dialogue. In a culture where rhetoric and debate shaped civic existence, to be silenced was to be denied not just vindication, but inclusion in the communal narrative of justice. Left with unresolved conflicts and grievances, they lingered in social and legal limbo, trapped in a system obsessed with discourse, but dismissively mute to their petitions for justice and recognition. Beyond the realms of the agora and courthouse, the very threads connecting them to history and ancestry were cut. In a society that revered its ancestors, barred entry to ancestral graves or rituals constituted a profound loss. This denial broke the continuity cherished by Athenians, the rituals binding past, present, and future generations together. Severed from such sacred rites, the expelled faced the erosion of personal and communal histories, stripped of their roots and thrown into a present that lacked the anchoring rhythms of tradition and memory. The isolation felt by these social exiles was amplified by economic barriers, as citizenship rights typically underpinned one's economic viability. Once revered family networks and relational ties that facilitated trade or employment vanished, leaving individuals to navigate a harsh economic landscape alone. Where once merchants and artisans engaged freely, fear and suspicion replaced commerce, driving the ostracised to the fringes of economic survival. Without the business partnerships bolstered by citizenship, their skills withered in obscurity, further alienating their sense of purpose. Thus unfolded daily life in silent estrangement. Mundane activities like market visits and household chores became painful reminders of their social invisibility. While others mingled in the agora, they moved quietly through routines once shared, now starkly solitary. These daily rituals, steeped in the warmth of community, now felt cold and mechanical, without reciprocation or acknowledgement from fellow citizens. Each petty task whispered a reminder of belonging lost. The psychological toll on those caught in the grip of such silence was immense. Deprived of the dialogue that once structured their days, they grappled with inner turmoil and despair. Isolation bred introspection, questioning one's place and purpose amidst an uncaring cityscape. As friends vanished and civic ties disintegrated, many sank into a shadowy world of unvoiced desperation. This inner chamber of desolation compounded their external exile, casting long shadows over the mind, where once vibrant connections had thrived. Yet amidst this profound alienation, glimmers of hope endured. Some sought redemption through quiet acts of defiance, aiding fellow pariahs or honing neglected skills in the hope of societal reintegration. In the silence that enveloped them, a few found strength, clinging to dignity within the constraints of their imposed solitude. They forged clandestine relationships, drawing on inner resources to foster a sense of purpose anew. Despite the darkness of their circumstances, there persisted a flicker of resilience, an unyielding spark that strove for redemption against the hostile backdrop of Athens, a testament to the enduring spirit that thrived even in the face of relentless silencing. The journey to imprisonment in ancient Athens begins with an accusation, swift, public, and terrifying. The agora, this heart of democratic debate and mercantile life, turns quickly into a stage of judgment, though. Once accused, the city guard swiftly apprehends you, their faces indifferent and their grip resolute. Each step through the agora shifts it from a hub of social discourse to a walk of shame, as familiar eyes that once welcomed you now avert or glare. The city's cobbled pathways that felt like arteries pulsing with life now become a serpent constricting with every step, leading to a fate that hangs like a shadow just ahead. Ahead looms the dreaded stone building known as the Granary of Confinement. The stone jailhouse, a relic of Athenian past, surviving incongruously beside the enlightened philosophies it houses. Upon crossing its threshold, a palpable shift occurs. The air stagnates, carrying with it the scent of despair, mingled with a fetid stench of mildew. With the door's creak and a final slam, the sun, a constant came to fade, leaves you to the grim clutches of shadow. Here, this place does more than strip freedom. It assaults every sense, grounding you in the finality of your altered existence. Inside, life is bleak and harshly utilitarian, embodying an irony of Spartan simplicity in a city proud of its liberties. Cells, brutally basic, define the grim existence. Solid stone walls, barely light through barred slits, and coarse floors shared with rats, the true residents of this wretched abode. The chill seeps deep, chilling bones and souls alike, mingling with the scent of unwashed bodies pressed into despondence. Time, with its edges blurred by darkness, loses all meaning, shadowed by diseases festering unchecked within these unhygienic walls, turning simple ailments lethal amidst the prison's stagnant air. The absence of light and routine dismantles any notion of time, while the miasma of neglect drifts unchallenged, rendering prisoners voiceless amidst silence, becomes sinister, shattered only by the haunting lament of a fellow soul. Within this oppressive solitude, the mind is left untethered, craving narratives, grasping at faded memories, imagined dialogues, and shadows of what once was. This space devours the identity, leaving behind a shell marked by despair, adrift in mental anguish as the ties to Athenian citizenship unravel. Isolation is not just physical but deeply spiritual, a profound severance from the life and vibrancy of Athens. This transformation extends past the individual, impacting family legacies and civic obligations. The jailhouse becomes an end to your social ties. Your absence ripples through family affairs and business, leaving them in disarray, while debts, both social and financial, swell unchecked. Thus, imprisonment reaches beyond stone walls, shadowing family, and eroding relationships, extending guilt and societal rejection long after condemnation. Within these grim confines, guards rule as arbiters of suffering, custodians of this shadowy cycle, maintaining a pragmatic routine. Stoic and indifferent, some administer their duties with cold detachment, while others, swayed by potential political gain or bribes, intermittently wield their power with mercurial grace. They are the tenuous tie to the outside world, filter for parcels and the whims of crushed hopes. They reflect Athens' broader narrative, an intricate dance of light and shadow, ideals of philosophy juxtaposed with the pragmatic realities within stone confines. Illness, an unrelenting companion, thrives in this environment, spread by the prison's own grim nature. Sickness infiltrates both body and soul, with prisoners left to contend with the spectre of disease, using only whispered remedies and fleeting nods to humanity. Those weakened succumb not by judicial decree, but to the slow creep of illness that becomes the jail's truest executioner. These contagions extend beyond the jailed, infecting guards, seeping into the fabric of Athenian society, reminding it of the fragile balance between liberty and mortality. Yet within the echo of confinement, whispers of freedom persist, nurturing a fragile hope. Whether through acquittal, completed sentences, or whispered fantasies of escape, the prospect of liberation endures. Trials, though swayed by rhetoric or influence, offer a glimpse of freedom for those persuasive or fortunate. For the bolder among them, secret plans of escape foster fragile alliances, trading confidences for scraps or warmth. Yet reality harshly quells such dreams, reminding all of the consequences far beyond confinement, and of solidarity stripped normality. Emerging from this shadow, the past does not release its grip. Though jail doors open, memories and experience linger, branding minds just as surely as slates mark guilt. Freed, the world outside seems altered, friendships clouded, businesses diminished, family cautious yet embracing. Stomach memories colour even the brightest liberty, a haunting vigilance reflecting justice's terse lessons in society's core. Athens itself, through this dark chapter, exemplifies the tension between enlightenment and its shadows. A democracy striving for balance, yet learning through moments of introspection amid stone shadows. In the heart of ancient Athens, a city revered for its democracy and culture, the stark reality of life as a prisoner painted a grim tapestry. Those confined within the city's stone walls discovered quickly that their survival hung not on the mercy of the state, but on the fragile threads of personal connections outside. Friends, family, or perhaps a few political allies. These were their lifelines. The system was cold, placing little responsibility on the state to feed its captives. Instead, guards focused on maintaining order, often turning a blind eye to the human suffering unfolding around them. Life behind bars mirrored the socio-political dynamics of the outside world. Wealthier prisoners, buoyed by their affluence, could soften the harshness with well-timed bribes and a steady stream of provisions. Yet for many the story was different. Those without means or influential supporters faced starvation, a gnawing hunger that didn't just chip away at their physical well-being, but dug into their sanity, laying bare the raw divide between those who had and those who had not. The necessity of survival gave birth to a clandestine economy, one as ruthless as it was essential. Guards, integral players in this shadowy marketplace, accepted bribes for simple comforts. A piece of bread, a whispered message from a loved one, an extra blanket. Each had its price. Information too became a valuable currency, with rumours and news from the outside world sometimes more precious than food itself. Influential inmates wielded this power with finesse, orchestrating exchanges through sympathetic fellow prisoners or compliant guards, crafting a microcosm of society driven by desperate ingenuity. This system wasn't designed solely for neglect. It extended the reach of punishment into the very act of survival. Deprivation, a cold and deliberate tactic, served as a harsh reminder of the prisoner's fall from grace. The relentless pangs of hunger echoed through the imposing stone, marking every minute with a reminder of supposed guilt or treachery. For some, it was this intentional starvation that drew the line between life and a slow, lonely demise. Families of the incarcerated bore a heavy burden, balancing the desperate need to show loyalty and support with the risk of financial ruin. The ordeal could strain relationships, tearing families apart as they struggled between duty and survival. Yet among the gloom, tales of resilience shone through. Some families found their bonds strengthened, enduring the difficult path of maintaining a loved one denied all but the most basic dignity. Not all fared well. Abandonment loomed large, with former friends and even family sometimes severing ties. Caught in the shame and stigma, these prisoners faced a deeper isolation, where the silence surrounding their names cut deeper than any chains. This social abandonment reflected cruelly in the household and beyond, turning prisoners into ghostly figures, exiled not just in body but in spirit. Neglect, more lethal than the crimes they were accused of, awaited those without support. Prisoners, caught by fate or forgotten allies, often succumbed to untreated illnesses and starvation. It wasn't active punishment that claimed them, but the quiet, unyielding indifference. Tragic stories of the forgotten abound, their lives brought to inexplicable, hushed ends. Tales that linger as whispered reminders of societal failings, where to be forgotten meant to be condemned once more. And yet, among these harsh truths, moments of redemption flickered like distant stars. Freedom, when it came, exacted a steep toll, extending captivity's shadow to families and friends bent on securing a loved one's release. Land sold, futures mortgaged, all for the price of liberty. The release, a precious echo of relief and reunion under Athens' clear sky, was testament to love's endurance, a battle waged and won on the battlefield of human spirit. Within the grey confines of prison, another struggle unfolded, one of persuasion and influence. Those gifted with speech and charm navigated this underworld with surprising dexterity. Words wielded with care held power. They could tilt balances, broker necessities, and forge unexpected allegiances with guards or fellow prisoners, highlighting a parallel political discourse within these ancient walls. Memory played its own torturous role, acting as both a tormentor and a sanctuary. For some, clinging to the past offered brief solace, while for others, forgetting became salvation. The struggle against the eroding grip of time was as fierce as any physical battle, with prisoners wrestling their own minds amid history's echoing stones. Then, in rare moments, the mercy of the unknown intervened. Powerful advocates, sudden shifts in politics, or divine whimsy tilted fate towards unexpected freedom. Legend spoke of gods, unseen and merciful, influencing the fates of a fortunate few, underscoring the ancient belief in forces beyond mere human reach. These stories of inexplicable clemency kept alive the flickering hope amidst an otherwise merciless reality. Imprisonment in Athens, dark and unrelenting, carved lasting lessons into humanity's collective memory. These stones, echoing the ambitions and failings of the past, offered stark reminders against the pitfalls of justice misused and power unchecked. From this age-old drama emerges a haunting testament, an unyielding plea not to forget, to listen, and to learn from our history, lest we repeat its sorrows anew. In ancient Athens, the pursuit of justice often skirted the boundaries of morality, creating a chilling tableau where power and pain intertwined. Here, justice was less about the calm deliberation of truth, and more about the raw assertion of authority. While Athens was renowned for its philosophical pursuits, the methods employed to extract truth did not always align with its ideals. In a city-state where one's word could carry the weight of an entire trial, the boundary between honour and humiliation was razor-thin. Public interrogations served as both a consequence and a spectacle, a theatre of pain designed to ensure civic conformity and reflect the social hierarchy that upheld Athenian life. The Athenians operated under the belief that truth lay just beneath the surface, and often, a little pain was all it took to reveal it. This was particularly true for slaves and foreigners, whose testimonies were frequently deemed suspect unless validated by suffering. In Athens, the courtroom was not merely a chamber of judgment, but a stage upon which the human condition was laid bare, stripped down by the unyielding hands of judicial process. This normalization of harsh measures was rarely debated, slipping through the social fabric, as neither explicitly endorsed nor condemned. Torture existed in this nebulous space, an unspoken pillar of a justice system, content with practical results over ethical reflection. The methodology behind Athenian torture was diverse and dreadful. Physical agony was meted out with branding irons and dislocated joints, underpinned by the belief that truth was synonymous with suffering. Psychological torment, though less overt, wielded its own kind of terror. It preyed upon fears, holding loved ones' fates in the balance, or threatening prolonged disgrace. Whether through physical scars or mental anguish, the process turned individuals inside out, their hidden truths laid bare for all to judge. The roles of citizen, slave, and foreigner did not merely dictate social standing. They carved one's destiny within the legal landscape, marking the extent of privileges and perils any individual might endure. For Athenian citizens, particularly free men, the ordeal of physical torture was less common, a concession to the sanctity of their status. Yet this did not spare them from the unforgiving gaze of public scrutiny or the manipulations of psychological pressure. Slaves and foreigners, however, languished at the mercy of a system that demanded physical proof of their words. Detached from the protections afforded to citizens, they existed on the fringes, exposed to the full measure of judicial brutality without the shield of legal recourse. This stark contrast illuminated the deep-rooted prejudices that shaped Athens, where the worth of a person was etched into the sinews of their social rank and legal standing. Torture played a crucial, though often hidden role in the spectacle of Athenian justice. It served not only as a tool of evidence gathering, but as a prelude to the main event, a grim introduction to the theatricality of Athenian trials. Here, amid the roar of the public assembly, pain was believed to strip away deceit, pushing those accused to confess or implicate others, whether truthfully or under duress. The results were a harsh irony, a justice system claiming virtue but relying heavily on fear to achieve its ends. Nonetheless, it persisted as a vital component of the Athenian courtroom narrative, where truth was often an inconvenient casualty, in the greater quest for civic order. Philosophical debates, particularly those echoed by the likes of Socrates, question the morality of such practices. Was it possible, he posited, to extract truth through instruments of vice? The philosophical sphere offered a crucial, if overshadowed, critique of a system more willing to revisit ethical paradigms in rhetoric than in practice. Socrates' teachings and the Platonic dialogues that immortalized them stood as quiet testaments to a city grappling with its own contradictions, where questions of truth and virtue lay at the heart of intellectual discourse. Public perception was no less complex, as Athenian interrogations bore the dual burden of deterrence and entertainment. The spectacle of torture served as a poignant reminder of consequence, shaping societal norms and instructing onlookers in the discipline required of a democratized state. These public agonies spoke to deeper truths about power, control, and the intricate dance between civic life and authoritarian enforcement. Curiosity and horror intertwined as onlookers absorbed implicit lessons, stray from accepted behaviour, and the city would make a brutal example of you. Cases of high-profile interrogations only further underscored the tension between legal procedure and political manoeuvring. Trials like that of the Arginusae generals, or the scandal surrounding the Eleusinian mysteries, demonstrated how allegations could ignite the pyres of public opinion, turning legal inquiry into a forum for political intrigue. These moments painted a vivid picture of a city-state in flux, navigating the delicate layers of power, reputation, and survival. The legacy of torture within Athens is complex, an indelible mark on a society celebrated for its enlightenment, yet beholden to the darker impulses of human nature. Over time, the scars of such practices fostered doubt and spurred on philosophical skepticism, planting seeds of reform in subsequent legal paradigms. The echoes of Athenian justice leave a haunting reflection of the struggle between moral ambiguity and civic necessity. A saga of pain and power, forever intertwined in the annals of history. As dawn breaks over Athens, Nix Hill stirs to life, a silent stage set for a drama of democracy. Here, where stone benches rise in concentric circles around the bema, or speaker's platform, the fate of men is decided. The Acropolis stands sentinel in the backdrop, its marble gleaming like the eyes of the gods overseeing these mortal proceedings. Those brave or desperate enough to step up to the bema know their fate teeters on a fragile axis, often swayed more by the artistry of persuasion than the cold, hard truth. The air thickens with anticipation as 501 jurors shuffle to their places, their murmurs swelling into a low roar. These jurors are not trained legal minds. They are fishermen, farmers, artisans, ordinary citizens wielding extraordinary power. Each man holds a bronze disc, capable of deciding life or death. Anonymous within their masses, they hide behind their numbers, but each is influenced by personal prejudices, political pressures, and the day's oratory performances. Here, the ideals of democracy meet the unpredictability of human nature. The courtroom isn't a place of reason, it's a theatre where the capricious whims of the crowd hold sway. Enter the orators, the city's eloquent spellbinders. They are masters of rhetoric, sculpting words into weapons capable of swaying even the hardest hearts. To the accused, choosing the right logographer is a matter of survival. This partnership doesn't hinge on the strength of the case, but on the orator's ability to deliver a compelling narrative. They play the weaknesses of the human psyche like strings on a lyre, using drama, pathos and emotion to manipulate their audience, often leaving logic and truth trailing behind. In Athens, a trial is less about the application of law and more an unfolding play, an exercise in theatrical persuasion. The orator shapes facts into stories, enticing the jurors' emotions. A successful orator orchestrates the feelings of 501 souls, knowing that anger, sorrow, or joy can be far more potent than reason. The jury, far from being impartial, is a volatile audience susceptible to the seduction of a well-spun tale. Desperation creeps in as the accused takes the stand. In this sacred space, where lives hang by delicate threads, tears become a potent weapon. Emotion takes centre stage, with pleas and displays of vulnerability swaying the jurors' hearts. The courtroom is anything but silent. It reverberates with the chaos of raw human sentiment. Outbursts, cries, and dramatic pauses have the power to alter destinies, underscoring the trial's performative nature. Here, the boundaries between truth and theatrics blur, revealing the human inclination towards spectacle over substance. Yet for all its grandeur, this theatre is riddled with ethical ambiguities. While Athens officially condemns bribery, the shadow of corruption lurks beneath the surface. Coins exchange hands clandestinely, and favours tip the scales of justice. Sometimes supernatural signs, a sudden gust of wind or an eclipse, carry more weight with the jury than cogent arguments. Fate dances with bias, intertwining in this grand courtroom display of democracy. The verdict, the moment all have awaited, brings the drama to its climax. Jurors drop their tokens of guilt or innocence into urns, their clatters echoing like muted thunder. Yet what semblance of fairness emerges from the collective judgment of 501 individuals, each with a personal bias? Blindfolded justice dons a unique mask here, a mix of tragedy and farce. After the verdict echoes, society feels its ripple effects, leaving the convicted to navigate a city forever altered by their trial's outcome. Even after surviving this trial by theatre, life is marked indelibly. Relieved of a death sentence, the convicted enter society's shadows, bearing the stigma of their courtroom ordeal. Peace remains elusive as the verdict lingers, casting a long shadow over their existence. Relationships fray, opportunities dissipate. Athens, proud of its democratic rationality, imparts a chilling reminder of the personal despair such public judgments inflict. In the bleak aftermath, an appeal for mercy might be the accused's final hope. Here the city entertains the spectacle of clemency, where souls are laid bare before the jury's remaining conscience. Yet mercy highlights judicial insufficiency, a tender human response within an otherwise indifferent system. These pleas contain irony in their essence, for they underscore the deep flaws within a system built more on impression than on soundness. In truth, the line between trial and spectacle is indistinct, with lessons taught amid melodrama. Each trial unfolds as a real-life drama, its consequences rippling through civic life, like a grand teaching theatre. Politics and justice intertwine seamlessly. Both are subject to the winds of public emotion and perception. Athenian trials mirror our own, forever resonating in modern courtrooms, where bias and narrative trample facts. While we've endeavoured to peel away theatricality, echoes of past methods linger, a haunting testament to humanity's enduring quest for justice, cloaked in the grandeur of public performance. Under the sprawling Athenian sky, the city of philosophers held dark secrets that wove their way into its streets and hearts. Public executions in ancient Athens weren't just methods of punishment. They were performances of power, carefully crafted to remind every citizen of the thin line separating order from chaos. Each execution was a ritual, producing not merely death, but an indelible lesson engraved onto the psyche of the populace. Bodies fell beneath the weight of civic values and divine decrees, where each act of state-endorsed brutality resonated not just through Athenians' veins, but deep into their very souls. Execution was a grim theatre where the stakes were supremely human. The condemned faced their end amidst the sacred, the process osmosing a metaphysical essence into the act itself. For crimes deemed severe, death was intertwined with divine retribution, sometimes occurring near sacred grounds, or involving rites intended to purify the city of any taint left by the condemned. In those moments, the stability of Athens was underpinned not only by civic rules, but by what they believed to be cosmic design. The execution of Socrates remains one of the most famous uses of hemlock, a poison that bore a semblance of elegance, disguising its grim procession of death. It provided a supposedly gentle departure, the herb slipping quietly into the body, lulling muscles into paralysis before the patient's suffocation silenced the final breath. This method of execution, however, was far from humane, with fear and agony frequently accompanying the condemned as numbness crept over them. This veneer of dignified exit was embraced by the Athenians, reflecting a society that viewed death as an opportunity to reinforce its philosophical identity, allowing the condemned a sense of control over their departure within their prison walls. Despite this picture of serene finality, Athens did not shy away from far more visceral demonstrations of justice. For particularly repugnant offences, the Athenian approach could shift to brutal forms like stoning. Here the crowd, not content to passively observe, was drawn into the macabre ritual, a ceremonial release of communal outrage. Stones flew from the hands of ordinary citizens, who became lawmakers of flesh and fury, their judgment manifest in every violent throw. In a society where respect was volatile currency, the act of stoning was a chilling reminder of what collective anger could unleash, serving as a warning etched into the collective memory. On the opposite end was the agonizing erosion through starvation, where the silence of neglect tightened its merciless grip. Athenian cells became graves for the unwanted, where inmates' lives were extinguished by the slow passage of time rather than by a singular act of violence. The punishment mirrored ostracism's societal expulsion, where the physical decay echoed the moral void left in the city's consciousness. The slow death of starvation schooled Athens in lingering whispers of cruelty, a testament to how the soul of democracy could eat its own principles raw. The display of shamed exposure thrust the condemned into the unforgiving gaze of both public and nature. Deprived of clothing and dignity, they were left to succumb to elements and scorn, a punishment that targeted the mind as much as the body. Apotympanismos, as it was known, ensured the condemned were remembered not just for their transgressions, but for the state's unyielding grip over human fate. As if the elements were complicit in the sentence, exposure ensured civic disdain branded far deeper than any physical cutting. Executioners, the silent agents of this harsh justice, were veils of the state's authority, figures shrouded in anonymity yet heavy with the burden of their task. Neither malevolent nor sympathetic, they stood as bridges between the decree and the deed, embodying the unfeeling, immovable hand of law. As impersonal as much as they were necessary, they served the will of Athens, the instrument through which the city whispered its intents to both gods and mortals alike. Philosophers and citizens alike were drawn to question their city's methods, pondering the ethical tightrope of Athenian justice. Socrates himself became a martyr in such debates, challenging where justice ended and vengeance began. Discourse ricocheted through the agora, where ideas of correction battled against those of deterrence. Athens, poised as a beacon of democracy, faced the glaring contrast between its ideologies and the brutality meted out under its banner, turning execution into a dialogue between philosophy and practice. Even in death, punishment permeated further depth when funeral rites sacrosanct in Athenian society were denied to the condemned. Such an erasure was more than mere vengeance. It severed one's ties to both mortal and spiritual realms, barring entry into the continuum of life and death. For families, the absence of burial rites was an enduring scar, the anguish of a spirit unanchored. Without ceremonial closure, the condemned were left to drift in dishonour, casting a shadow that stretched beyond life into enduring social infamy. Athens' brutal executions reflected the paradox at its heart, a city thrumming with the ideals of democracy while cloaked in the red hues of retribution. The spectacle of execution was society's performance, binding citizens in a shared experience of morality and mortality. The breathtaking uncertainty of life under strict justice made starkly clear by every execution carried out under its sunlit streets. In the vibrant chaos of ancient Athens, death did not grant reprieve to those condemned by the city's unyielding justice. The custom of atimia, or the loss of honour, reached beyond the grave, casting a long shadow over the memories of the punished. A name could vanish as though peeled away like the paint from a cherished mural, leaving behind an empty void for family and descendants to navigate. This was more than personal loss. It was a societal lesson, crafted to resonate through generations, ensuring that the transgressions of one would never be repeated by many. Athens found power in punishing the dead, solidifying its control over the living. One's very existence became a blemish to be scrubbed from historical records, family lineages, and public celebrations. Even essential burial rites, so crucial in Greek views of the afterlife, could be tainted, sending a chilling message. Disgrace was a burden worn by descendants too. It wasn't just cruel, it was meticulously calculated to echo through time, transforming an individual's downfall into a moral story for all ages. This way, one's legacy wasn't merely extinguished, it was repurposed into a gnawing tale of caution. For those whose names were tarnished, the ramifications extended into the heart of the family. The moment a sentence was declared, the tendrils of shame enveloped their kin. Families found themselves stripped of civic privileges, barred from markets and legally vulnerable, their social status crumbling under public scorn. The foundations of Greek family life, deeply rooted in societal connection and collective standing, meant that any blemish on one member defiled the entire kin group. Children born into such shadows inherited more than just the genetic traits of their ancestors. They bore a legacy of disgrace, their futures shaped by association. Marital prospects dimmed, and their voices quieted in civic matters, overshadowed by ancestral shame. Imagine daily rituals stained by suspicion and social exclusion, spinning a cycle of inherited shame that only an act of public redemption might break. Peculiarly, even the walls of Athens would bear the scars of this erasure. Public dedications were defaced, and statues intended for immortality toppled, their inscriptions removed from walls and pots. To be etched in stone or art was a gesture towards permanence. To be effaced was the ultimate punishment. As citizens gazed upon these altered cityscapes, they saw silent warnings in absences, reminders of the swift potential for one's noble existence to disappear, swallowed by the annals of history. The whispered legacies of these condemned souls lived on. In Athens, stories took root in oral tradition, not as tales of heroism but as haunting parables. These narratives found life in quiet conversations, not for glorification but as reminders of dire consequences. Across dinner tables and market stalls, these stories became moral touchstones for future generations, grounding in grim reality while occasionally weaving tales embroidered for thematic impact. Thus, whispered accounts persisted, reminding Athenians that while physical markers faded, the law of caution echoed indefinitely. Imagine walking through the bustling agora, where society's lifeblood flowed in the chatter of merchants and thinkers. Within this vibrance, there existed an unspoken recognition of those missing, their voids as pronounced as any column. The city noted who was not seen, and their absence taught lessons louder than any voice. Such disappearances affirmed society's scaffolding, highlighting norms, respect, and ever-watchful eyes ensuring adherence. Even in death, the political prisoner's shadow loomed, casting doubt on a family's ability to fulfill burial rites imperative in ancient Greece. The disgrace marred the departed's peaceful journey to the afterlife. Deprivation of sacred mourning rites multiplied this agony, branding a personal stain while severing them from cultural identity. The families left to mourn bore this painful bounty, and in their hearts their acts of remembrance became small rebellions against the machinery of society that had erased their loved ones. To be expunged from Athens was more than a penalty. It was cultural amputation. The collective memory thrived on individual contributions. Each lost soul tore away chapters from the city's narrative, leaving a strange absence within its cultural fabric. As public memory pruned unwelcome weeds, ghostly impressions remained. Those who lived with these consequences were isolated from theatres, festivals, and rites of citizenship, caught between familiarity and isolation. A dance between history's participants and its silent phantoms. The stories of sinners as scapegoats held an unsettling role in stabilising collective morale. These sacrifices served to publicly purge communal sins. Society magnified individual transgressions into shared moral errors, casting off faults through public shunning. The condemned were testimonies to society's flaws. Their downfall assured collective solace, a harsh yet effective fix to preserve Athenian unity. The end of a disgraced life resonated beyond its end. This echo linked immediate social experience to broader civic interaction, mingling personal grief with public morality. As mourners left burial sites, private sorrow intertwined with societal instruction, each voice reinforcing community trust through orchestrated shame. Despite their exclusion, their stories continued to inform the city, illustrating democracy's delicate balance of freedom and vigilance. Bridging the past to future virtue, these tales of disgrace guided generations to uphold the tenets of conduct and collective unity above personal folly. In ancient Athens, the birthplace of democracy, freedom was both a cherished ideal and a precarious facade. Citizens revelled in their newfound ability to shape laws and elect leaders, a revolutionary concept for its time. Yet, beneath this democratic exterior lay an intricate web of control designed to maintain order and silence dissent. The promise of liberty came with an unspoken cost. A society prizing open discourse simultaneously harboured the machinery to crush those who dared to challenge the status quo. In this thriving polis, freedom was real but served as a double-edged sword, liberation and suppression existing side by side, with the spectre of retribution ever looming. The Athenian assembly, a bustling arena, reflected the city's democratic spirit, where citizens gathered to debate and decide their future. However, this arena often devolved into chaos, with decisions swayed more by charismatic speeches than solid reasoning, a theatrical stage where vibrant oratory could overpower truth. Participants in this public spectacle understood the volatile nature of public opinion, where popularity was fleeting and alliances could turn on a whim. Political survival in Athens required an astute navigation of this tempestuous arena, a delicate dance of influence, rhetoric, and strategic alliance building. Majority rule served as both democracy's strength and its peril, empowering the citizenry while simultaneously oppressing minority voices. The will of the many, while a force for cohesion, also became a vehicle for exclusion, fostering an environment where dissenters could be swiftly marginalised. Athens thrived on unity, yet its democratic construct inadvertently sanctioned a form of tyranny by majority, remorseless in its pursuit of consensus. The system celebrated its collective identity through the harsh silencing of contrarian voices, a stark reminder of power's duality, nurturing and destructive, liberating yet confining. In Athens, speech was valued as a cornerstone of democratic life. Parrhesia, the right to speak candidly, was prized, yet speaking out carried inherent risks. Within the vibrant discourse of the city, a tension simmered, a fine line between acceptance and aggression. Those daring enough to critique authority often found themselves facing severe repercussions. Socrates, the renowned philosopher, stood as a poignant example, his methods of inquiry leading to charges of corruption, and ultimately, his death. This perilous interplay between free speech and societal retribution encapsulated the dangers of dissent in Athenian life. Political life in Athens was shadowed by an ever-present paranoia, a suspicion of betrayal, lurking sedition, and subversion. This climate of distrust, while fostering vigilance, sometimes slipped into hysteria, converting justice into a spectacle of overreaction. Navigating the political landscape required a keen sense of perception and shrewd manipulation of both public and private allegiances. The heightened alertness against conspiracies turned governance into an elaborate game where whispers could lead to one's downfall. Although their justice system was designed to protect and serve, it was sometimes compromised by unfounded accusations, straining the very ideals Athens sought to uphold. Public punishment served not only as retribution, but as edification, with justice morphing into a display meant to reinforce communal values. Spectacles of punishment, from dramatic exile to executions, communicated societal norms through vividly enacted consequences, blending justice with social pedagogy. These public displays were reminders of the unyielded power the state wielded in its quest for order, making examples of transgressors as a caution to observers of the invisible societal lines drawn and guarded by its harsh judgments. Athenian citizenship, a mark of prestige, came with both privilege and responsibility. Only male Athenians bore these rights, actively participating in their government while adhering to strict societal expectations. A veneer of protection, citizenship could be rescinded through missteps seen as threats to public order. Instead of total immunity, citizenship highlighted more severe repercussions for breaches of public trust, mirroring the paradox of belonging and exclusion amidst freedom. In this city where democracy thrived, citizens had their privileges tied to tenuous threads, ever cautious of falling from grace. Athens' impact resonated beyond its borders, its democratic ethos studied and emulated by future societies. Yet its narrative was punctuated by contradictions, aspirations of an egalitarian administration weighed down by arbitrary retribution and nebulous interpretations of guilt. This legacy, both admired and critiqued, painted an image of a democracy of promise and blemish. Athenians left a woven tapestry of brilliant governance that simultaneously illustrated the topsy-turvy nature of human judgment and societal rule. Amidst the spectre of punishment dwelled flickers of redemption for those willing to reclaim their honour. Though disgraced, individuals could seek rehabilitation, often imposed through public atonement or humility, to reintegrate into society. Redeeming oneself after public condemnation highlighted Athens' embracing of resilience, an intricate plotline within democracy's fabric that gave narratives of second chances to those who dared climb back toward communal acceptance. As Athens stands under the starry canopy of history, the lessons of its democracy extend into contemporary discussions of governance and freedom. The intricate dance between liberty and control remains central to democratic theory, where ideals of unfettered freedom cohabitate with structured governance. Athens' legacy is a testament to democracy's inherent capacity for adaptation, its historic experiment inviting ongoing reflection and continuous re-evaluation, an enduring tale of ambition and human struggle that continues to seek a harmonious balance. If you found this exploration of democracy's complex history engaging, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories about the ancient world